What's a snapdragon? In the world of love, it's a year-round flower that snaps open like the face of a dragon. Well then what's a crate? Nope. But what kind of love can a snapdragon and a crate produce in a cell phone? In the world of tech, the Snapdragon by Qualcomm is the only system on a chip for mobile devices with custom microarchitecture. It's based on processor designs licensed from ARM Holdings, but while the other processor companies copy the designs, Qualcomm custom designs its own chips, down to the cores. The Snapdragon has all the parts of a mobile device in one package. Even the cellular modem is built onto the die. This is the main reason we see it in most smartphones and tablets today. Qualcomm's latest chip, the Snapdragon S4, even integrates Wi-Fi, GPS, and Bluetooth. Going down memory lane, the Snapdragon S1 was presented to the world in the HTC Tattoo and Wildfire in 2007, and runs nearly every early touch device made by Samsung, LG, HTC, and Nokia. The custom CPU, called Scorpion, see a theme here, was the best-selling ARM architecture in 2009 and 2010 for Android devices. Even though it's based on the older ARM Cortex-A8, the Scorpion has better pipelines and better media processing. At the time, Qualcomm led the market by offering a dual-core version with up to 1.5 GHz, and we still see these chips in the cheaper phones today. But in 2011, competition heated up as Nvidia, Samsung, and Texas Instruments sold the first dual Cortex-A9 designs, while all Qualcomm did was improve memory and graphics in the Snapdragon S2 installed in all these devices. The memory supports dual-channel 333 MHz LPDDR2, maxing out with a 1.4 GHz single-core Scorpion and Qualcomm's custom GPU, the Adreno 205. It supports 720p HD, and OEMs installed it in all these devices that you might be buying today. And the S2 integrates 3G HSPA+ basebands. For all these devices, the Snapdragon S3 showed us that Qualcomm was a force to be reckoned with. It had dual-core Scorpions that max out at 1.7 GHz, the GPU was upgraded with the Adreno 220 with support for HDMI out at 1080p, Dolby 5.1, and native 1440 by 900 display resolution, and the memory doubled to 1 MB of L2 cache. Now this brings us to today. What happens when you join a Snapdragon with a crate? One word. Magic. The Snapdragon S4 is the biggest leap in chip technology for Qualcomm, mostly because of the custom-designed 28nm Crate CPU. Saving the technical explanations for another video, basically the front end of Crate is wider and can fetch and decode 3 instructions per clock. The pipeline is 11 stages deep, and it has more than double the execution ports over the Scorpion. The execution backend has more than double the execution ports as well, issuing up to 4 instructions in parallel. The Crate has a lot more extra memory to help with the processing. The 8 KB of L0 cache have an 85% hit rate, reducing the need to power on the 32 KB of L1 cache. Both run at the same frequency as the core, and the 1 MB of L2 cache, or 2 MB for the quad core, is capped at 1.3 GHz and can be power gated to save even more power. While Crate has been compared to the upcoming 64-bit ARM Cortex-A15 design, it seems to be more of a bridge between the current A9 and the A15. First, the A15 can handle more data, with a 15-stage integer pipeline, compared to 11 stages. But the Crate does support the new virtualization instructions and 40-bit memory addressing in the A15, supporting more than 4 GB of RAM. With a high-level 3-wide out-of-order engine, AnandTech.com claims that Crate should outperform both A9 and Intel's Atom processors in the first Centrino notebooks. Mind blown. The Crate single-core is 30% faster than the similar single-core A9, and it can issue 3 Neon instructions per cycle instead of just the 2 in Scorpion. For power and thermal operating temperatures, the 28nm low-power process will reduce current leakage across all operating levels, and each core can be clocked independently. The Snapdragon S4 is broken down into 4 product lines, and while the chips are powerful, it's really up to the OEMs to decide how many of the features to implement. The S4 Play is the basic model with 1.2 GHz dual ARM Cortex-A5s and an Adreno 230 GPU. The S4 Plus is the first major release with cellular support including LTE built in. Here we get the dual-core Crate CPU maxing out at 1.7 GHz and the Adreno 225 supporting 1080p video, up to 20 megapixel stills, and Direct 3D. With LTE support, the S4 Plus is in some of the best Android devices today. The dual-core 1.5 GHz version will be able to complete tasks quicker and preserve battery life by dropping down to idle faster. The Adreno 225 GPU is an older GPU architecture based on the Adreno 220 and the S3, with 8 vector units and 8 scalar units running at 400 MHz. For cellular, it has 28nm basebands supporting LTE, UMTS, CDMA, and GSM. The upcoming S4 S4 Pro and S4 Prime can have a dual or quad-core 1.7 GHz crate with an updated Adreno 320 GPU. For smartphones, the biggest feature of the Snapdragon is an LTE modem integrated on die, which should use less power than the separate modem in other devices. But how much power will the Snapdragon S4 actually need compared to other ARM-based processors? Subscribe and stay tuned to Chip Wars as we cover the Tegra 3, the Exynos 4 Quad, OMAP's 4470, and Apple's A-series processors.